Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Bandholz here with Beard Brand and E-Commerce Conversations. I am super excited to have another one of my both online and in-person friends, Webb Smith, join us. He is the founder of 2PM, as well as many other things in the past, which I think we're going to get into a little bit. But why don't you go ahead and give us a little rundown of your 30-second commercial?
Thank you. I appreciate it, Eric. I didn't set out to have a career in e-commerce. It just sort of happened that way. Starting back in Austin in 2008, 2009, buddies and I, we kicked off with an e-commerce/media play tailored to the CrossFit community. And we ended up selling that. And right around that same time, I was invited to come to Columbus, Ohio and work for Rogue Fitness, which is built on Magento, tremendous company. They're at 1,000 employees now, fully bootstrapped, amazing story. Rogue taught me a lot. Listening to Bill and Katie Henniger and watching them build their business really made an impression on me. From there, co-founded Mizzen and Main with Kevin Lavelle. Bootstrapped that first early 2 years. Very painful experience, but learned a lot, both tactically, professionally, and personally. And then from there, I decided to get out of entrepreneurship altogether. I was really burnt out. So I worked for a few media companies, Uncrate.com, GearPatrol.com, and really opened my eyes, really sort of set my path forward moving into the next sort of phase. And actually, I was contracted to another company for a little bit after Gear Patrol when I came to the conclusion that I was going to go all in on 2PM. And I didn't have a business plan, but I just hoped that it was going to work. And it's been a mistake. It was a business that never intended to be, but it's worked out.
I think that's a pretty interesting take. I'm online with all the Twitter hustlers who are, pumping up everyone, start your business, be an entrepreneur. And obviously that's where you've ended up today, but you took that small break. Talk about going back to working for the man and what that was like.
It was really important. I really wanted to learn better leadership. I wanted to understand structure and corporate growth a little bit better. These aren't huge companies, but they're big enough for them to have the basic mechanics of scalable business. And I needed to rest my mind and my soul. Entrepreneurship, my original go, took a toll on me mentally and emotionally. And I don't think that I was the best leader. I think that I was at my wit's end most of the time just because we were bootstrapping. And frankly, my family was poor, at least on paper. I didn't feel that way sometimes because we always seemed to make things happen at the right time, but we weren't in a good place. And so I told myself that if I was going to do anything with 2PM and I was going to make it a thing, I was going to do everything right and take it slow and care about profits and all the things that you're supposed to care about, the things that are in vogue right now. And so far it's worked out, not to get like spiritual, but I pray about it a lot. I just hope for the best. I work my butt off. I think you know that. And I really care about the outcome. And I hope that shows.
Yeah. So was that kind of the mistakes you made with your early businesses, is just trying to focus on the top line and grow at all costs? And
it wasn't only that. It was just not understanding a lot of the fundamentals, right? 2PM is short for 2 Polymaths, and that's for a reason. I don't think that you can start a business and actually scale it from the 0 to 1 unless you have a holistic view of every aspect of your industry and the industries surrounding it. And I would say that in my first phase, in my mid-20s, I just didn't have a greater understanding of business, to understand how things interacted with each other, to understand the politics of fundraising and the politics of interpersonal relationships and things like that. This time around, I'm not going to say that I'm a master at anything, but I understand it a little bit better. And at 35, 36, 37 years old, I understand my limitations. I understand like when I need to outsource certain things, what my expectations are, and I'm okay growing slowly. I'm playing my own game, and I try not to be swayed by the games of others.
This business, is it bootstrapped as well, or have you brought on investors?
This is very much so bootstrapped. Again, when I said that it was a mistake, it just sort of happened. It was a hobby that became a consistent and persistent daily task that I eventually monetized. And then I just had this greater vision for the platform, helping to move the industry forward, both with data, insights, and interpersonal connections. And so far, it's delivering on that. Could it be bigger? Yeah, but I'm not sweating the details just yet.
Yeah. So how are you bringing value to your customers through 2PM?
That's a great question. I know a lot of people have found their first investors. They've found C-suite business partners. They've reshaped their perspectives as to what their business should do next and how those businesses should respond to the times. I have a particular view of all this. I'm not very technical. I'm technical as a person. I'm not very technical on the platform, meaning you're not going to hear me talk about like the bricks and mortar or like the nuts and bolts of CRO or optimizing LTV CAC ratio and all the things that we do behind closed doors. Part of that's because I believe that the best businesses are made by riding waves, and that once the wave comes, the rest of those things are just minutia. It's just the details. And if the wave is big enough, you won't even have to worry about a lot of that stuff as much because the wave is going to carry you forward. And so one of the best ways to grow a business is to find the right wave at the right time. And those are most typically the successful businesses, especially during times of duress. I think that there are businesses that are taking advantage of those types of concepts right now. I've come from a few of those businesses. Rogue, without CrossFit early on, there probably would be no Rogue, but Rogue is way bigger than CrossFit now. They caught a wave and they ran with it and they optimized after the fact. And so I try to present opportunity to businesses. For the people that can see those opportunities, they act on them and it gives them a strategic advantage.
Yeah, I think that's pretty hard though. How can you have that vision of knowing where the market's moving or shifting or kind of that insight? It seems like, a little bit of luck in there too, which is probably a dirty word for a lot of entrepreneurs out there.
I don't think that it's luck. I think that it comes from sort of the entire perspective of what 2PM represents. And that's if you study the entire ecosystem enough, you're going to find that information. If you find the connections in the neural pathways between different events, how different industries interact with certain things or react to certain things, you're going to see it. It's one of the greatest frustrations of 2PM for me so far has been, I'll write something 6 months prior and then today the concept blows up on a much larger platform or the topic of concern blows up on a much larger platform. And I'm like, well, good thing is if you've been reading 2PM, you knew that was going to happen or that development was going to occur. The bad thing for me though, is like, I don't necessarily get the juice from that, but I'm okay with that because I'm really serving my subscribers. I'm not trying to build myself.
Yeah. Now, another thing that you've done is worked at a seed level investment for a lot of pretty impressive brands. Like, how are you lining up those deals and supporting these companies? And how do you know when you kind of put your foot in the water or when you walk away from it?
That's a great question. So yes, 2PM does angel and seed round investing. Essentially, I have a model that I would refer to as vertical commerce. I did not coin that phrase. I would say that Nate Poulin, digitally native, deserves credit there. He originally used it in the context of what he felt that I was building. And it goes as such. We have a unpaid subscriber base that converts into a paid subscriber base. Of that paid subscriber base, quite a few of them become growth partners, meaning I'll select a number of these companies for 2PM to consult. Those companies have been tremendous for the operational expertise that I'm able to provide others. So in that context, 2PM has consulted Verizon Media, ShipBob, Passport, the Chernin Group, BigCommerce, Common Thread, ButcherBox, Alibaba, Rogue, DuraDry, Packlane, it goes on and on. And, that's recurring revenue. And that revenue obviously goes into reinvesting into 2PM. It improves the content that I'm able to provide elsewhere, meaning I'm writing 2PM as an insider. People will say, oh, that's a nice take or that's a nice thought. But in actuality, what I'm saying is I've encountered this principle behind closed doors without breaking contractual non-disclosure or anything. Here's how that applies to the greater industry. But as a revenue portion, I allot a number each quarter to reinvest. And I invest in those brands, in those platforms that support them.
Is there a checklist of things that you're looking for in these brands? Is it the wave that you're trying to get the feel for, or is it something else?
It depends on the style of company. If it's a CPG brand, I look for omni-channel expertise. I think that Recess has done a wonderful job. Element's done a wonderful job. Sanzo's doing a great job. Obviously, House is tremendous right now. Helena and Woody just launched their efforts to expand to restaurants and to expand distribution that way. From a fashion standpoint, you have Alps and Meters and Rowing Blazers. Obviously, my stake in Mizzen. In that respect, Rowing Blazers is a great example because I look for founder product fit more than I look for product market fit. Like, how much does that founder embody what the brand is that they're trying to build? And in Rowing Blazers, Jack Carlson's like the picture perfect person. Georgetown guy, Oxford guy, national team rowing, sophisticated in a lot of ways, but down to earth enough to allow the brand to expand to other aspects of culture that wouldn't have been previously accessible to the prep space, to the preppy space. He's just done a wonderful job. And so those are all elements that I look for. In SaaS, I just look for the companies that are supporting the ecosystem. Fast is a great example, Marketer Hire, Shoelace, and as of yesterday, Answerable out of Canada. And so these are all exciting things for me.
You mentioned out of Canada. Are there any regulations or challenges with investing in international businesses?
Not so far. If I run into those, I look forward to sharing my experience. But so far, I've had a great experience with Shoelace and Answerable. And, Fast was founded by an immigrant as well. And he's here and he's done a great job. And so I'm trying to do a better job of casting a wider net. I would say this on LinkedIn a few months ago, I got a question from someone that was sort of antagonizing me. And they were saying, well, how many of your portfolio companies are founded by Black founders? Well, she said, how many are owned by Black founders? And I said, well, all of them technically, because I am, but I understand the point. And in the e-commerce space, frankly, there aren't very many people that look like me. And so I'm committed to going overboard to build a platform to allow more people that look like me to be involved in this ecosystem.
When you're doing these investments, is there a time commitment to this as well, or is it purely financial?
It's intended to be purely financial, but I answer the call if I'm called, and I always help if they ask for my help. And I'm really, really passionate about that, mainly because I want to be helpful and I want to be operational, and this allows me to do so.
I just wonder, as you continue to scale and grow and bring on more businesses, how you're able to scale your time to be able to support all these companies.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with that yet. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Grace Clark out of New York, about systematizing 2PM and helping to build a team around certain of my processes. And I look forward to doing that in the very short term because I do see the need for that. I'm concerned about it, but right now, I know that I'm my limitation and I'm able to be as elastic as I need to be right now to get the tasks done.
Is 2PM just you, or do you have help in there?
Good question. My editor is Hillary Milnes. Andrew Haynes is creative director. Andrew Johnson is head developer. Vincenzo Landino helps me with all audio production. About to hire another 1 or 2 people, but the vast majority of the content that you see, from newsletter production to drafting memos to managing and growing to moderating Polymathic, that's all me. And it's a lot. I'm pushing 70 to 80 hour weeks. So when I don't respond to an email on a Monday morning on my worst day of the week because it's the Monday letter, I hope people understand it's because, my newsletters are coded in HTML. It's not easy. I try to make everything pixel perfect. It's a lesson that I learned from working at Uncrate, and I'm obsessive about the production of what I do. Hopefully people can see that and realize it.
You have any concerns about burning out, or how long does this runway have for you?
I have 2 daughters, man, and you have kids. So I would say that if you're a parent and you want to see your kids grow up well and have the best life possible, it's very unlikely that you're going to burn out. I know that sounds sort of like a crass way of putting it, but I have infinite motivation because of my family, and I've put myself through the ringer. I think you know that about me. I train really hard. I don't drink. I try to sleep enough, even if it's a solid 4 to 6 hours a night. I really push my limits to be able to maintain this pace. I'll be the first to tweet about it when I'm broken.
Are you telling me you're only sleeping 4 to 6 hours?
Yeah, right now I am.
Damn, dude. You gotta get in bed.
I know. I know. And I know that, this sort of diverts from the e-commerce conversation, but I'm in just a perpetual build mode. I have an opportunity to do something really special. And when I see an opportunity, I just run towards it as fast as I can. And it's not like the hustle culture bullshit. I hate that. I'm a dad, man. I'm a dad, and my daughters have tuition and they want to play soccer, and, they want a house that's big, not because they want a big house, but because they just want space. And so when you think about all those things and you sort of reverse engineer it into the work that you're doing on a daily basis, like, okay, now's not the time for moderation, Yeah.
Do you feel like you're missing out on any aspects of the growth of your family or commitment to your family by putting so much time into the business?
I don't, because I think one of the reasons why I don't sleep as much is because I'm there. Like I take Alexis to practice last night. I get home after, we stop for dinner at 9:30. I'm spending time with them until 11:30, and then I'm up. So my wife is understanding enough at this point to know that, like, from 11:45 to 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m., like, I'm probably making up for my lost time behind my desk. And I think that there's beauty in that. I try to be present. I don't miss games. I pay the price by taking it out on my sleep. And I hope to be a better manager and to delegate things in the near future. But for right now, I just know that I'm really necessary for a lot of the critical roles.
Yeah, I find that as a father of two as well, like finding that balance between being a good husband, being a good dad, and being a good leader for your company is a really challenging business. It's kind of I think there's like a 4-burner theory, something like that.
Yeah.
Where the amount of gas, if you put it to all 4 burners, it's not going to get as hot in one. So it sounds like maybe for a limited period of time, you can jam a lot of gas in there, but that's really going to take a lot of gas out of you. So you had to figure out how to pump it back in.
Sure. I mean, it's been 4 years. So over that 4 years, I've optimized my life in other ways. I stopped drinking 2 years ago because I recognized that slowed my recovery times, and that made me want to sleep more. I've trained every day in that 2 years. I think that I would say that my yield is so high right now in the context of like what I'm able to put my body through, that the first sign that I would see that, like, okay, I'm about to hit the wall is maybe I can't work out today. Like maybe my body's saying I can't work out. And if I get to that point, then yeah, like that'll be the first alarm. But as far as like doing my professional work, it's not the hardest thing that I do on a daily basis by any means, by any stretch.
I go back to like the early days of Beard Brand, and I couldn't turn it off. I was thinking about the company, 100% of the waking hour was going to that business and how to grow it and scale it and improve it. And then kind of as it reaches a point of stability and you get the right people in the right seats, you kind of find yourself letting go a lot more. And, things just kind of naturally open up, or at least that's kind of how it worked for me. And then I feel like there's kind of a risk with that as well, that as you lose that momentum, it may be harder to get back. So if you're looking to start up a new project or a side project or something, it's one of those things where it's like you say, catch the wave or ride that momentum to keep things going.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Absolutely. And again, like when that changes, I will make the adjustment.
What's your big vision? How's everything going to change in the next 5 years, and how you want to take advantage of that?
Yeah. Listen, I want 2PM to be able to fully quantify the private markets. So if you look at hedge funds, they've quantified public markets. You have terminals that can track the growth of business and help to predict those certain waves. And you have funds and organizations that act on that data. I'm trying to do the same thing with private markets, especially as it relates to e-commerce, retail, and media. And so like even my database, but brick by brick, we're trying to automate a lot of that data. And we're then trying to quantify the data that we're automating so that we can predict who we feel like has the most exit viability. So, the list is 438 companies now. We've automated employment data. We're going to automate funding data next. And then from there, it's going to be like, how do we methodically improve our tracking of these companies so that on any given day, what we believe are the most economically viable companies as it relates to exit viability or sustainable scale.
Yeah. Where do you see the valuations for e-commerce brands? I know they're going to be all over the board, but let's take like a digitally native, Rowing Blazers or something like that. Or how are people evaluating the businesses for anyone who's wanting to sell their e-commerce business?
That's a great question. I think it's going to depend. I think that e-commerce, especially as it relates to retail and e-commerce, it's an EBITDA-based business, right? We've tried the tech valuation thing. I've never agreed with that. E-commerce is about profitability, which is not a popular notion. And so I think that you're going to find that businesses are going to be based on a valuation that considers multiples of profit, multiples of EBITDA, for those that aren't into that, which I'm assuming is very few of you. But no, it's really important to consider that, because I think multiples of top line revenue are not going to apply across the board for a lot of these companies.
Yeah. So is that like a 3x, 5x, 10x?
It depends. I think it depends on the company and that company's ability to scale beyond their initial borders, right? I'm really, really bullish on Rowing Blazers. I think it's a great example. When I tell people, oh, this is the next Supreme, I usually get laughed at. But here's what I mean. They've found a way to tap into culture that most companies couldn't do if they tried. And because of that, they've built new flywheels. And these flywheels reduce the cost of customer acquisition. And as long as these flywheels sustain over time, and as long as the business continues to evolve, these flywheels are going to maintain. And I just know that in my mind, going back to what I said at the beginning of this conversation, that's a wave. And the best businesses are built on waves, whether they make them or the industry makes it for them.
I think speaking of waves, I've seen you talk a lot about this on Twitter, is just that shift from bricks and mortar to online business. And obviously, coronavirus and the lockdowns had a big part in that. You're pretty bullish on that being kind of the new normal, right?
100%. Listen, I just published something in yesterday's edition of 2 p.m. and it was talking about how close we are to a cashless society. You know, going back to what I was saying about finding the indicators in every story, cashless societies are a leading indicator for what's to come in e-commerce. If you look at China, they've mastered the art of the cashless society. And because of that, their e-commerce penetration is inching towards 42%, which is insane. Once we get to 30, 35, 40%, you're talking about $3 trillion in overall retail spend through e-commerce. Consider what the brands that are top of mind will be able to do once their market is much larger and their ability to access those customers becomes a little bit less expensive. You're going to see a lot of companies really blow up really fast. And it's just a matter of time. In a lot of ways, I believe a lot of the direct-to-consumer movement happened way too early. The brands that are starting now, you know, whether it's the Rowing Blazers or Gia, House, both companies that are inside and outside of the portfolio, they're well positioned to take advantage of this new growth with a lot less effort than the people that came 4 or 5 years behind them.
Yeah. How do you see Amazon playing in all this? Are they just going to continue to grab market share, or is there room and opportunity to move away from Amazon?
No, Amazon is our fullback. We should support Amazon in every single way, shape, and form. You know, I don't know what your political beliefs are, but I try to look at everything through the lens of American history and what our government's done to build infrastructure. Well, we no longer really build infrastructure like we used to as a country, and it's really unfortunate. But I do think that Amazon, the infrastructure that Amazon has built for us, is what would have happened if the government ran that infrastructure project in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, right? They've built the logistical ecosystem, the lines, the proverbial roads and highways and tunnels and bridges that we need to run behind to build our own businesses. And I think that they should be supported as such, because there isn't a better company to build those forms of infrastructure. Do I agree with a lot of their practices? Of course not. Would I put my brands on Amazon? I've disagreed when that's happened, and I still disagree with it. But Amazon is a very important aspect of it, and our percentage of penetration as an e-commerce industry would be much lesser without their involvement.
Do you see a lot of brands kind of having success with selling on multiple platforms, Amazon and their website, or do you kind of think it's better to be on one or the other?
I believe in the omnichannel approach in the context that you should sell where the customers are. I think a great example is what Kevin did with Mizzen before he stepped down as CEO. He put the shirts on Amazon, and he only put a selection of the shirts there that were not overstock, but they were like the basic models, the models that gave a new crowd that maybe didn't know what Mizzen was a taste of what the product is. And like once you became a fan of the brand through those particular SKUs and you visited the mothership, which is, the website that houses the company, then you saw a wider selection of premium shirts and things like that. That's a great example of how to use omni-channel systems on top of like Nordstrom and the country clubs and the member clubs that also carry the shirts. It's a fully omni-channel approach that a lot of brands could also emulate. I just think that we've gotten to the point where we're very religious about the platforms that we use, and I don't think that we should be.
Yeah, I just wonder from like marketing perspective, I'm not a big Amazon fan, so I kind of have alternating views than you. And one of the things is if I've got to pay $1 to bring on a customer, I'd rather that $1 go to my website rather than going to Amazon just because of, the control you have. Now, the question is on Amazon, maybe you don't have to spend $1. Maybe you only have to spend 50 cents or 20 cents or something like that. But in my opinion, by having that focus, you just have clarity of communication with your customers. But
yes. I would just say that, listen, you've done a wonderful job building Beard Brand. And I think one of the things that you have to learn, not you particularly, but we as a people in this industry, is to be slow to critique people's decisions when it comes to how they grow their own businesses. I think even a year ago, I would have been really quick to be like, oh, you're doing it wrong, Eric. Like, that's not how you do it. I mean, you've built a successful company, and most people can't say that. So they have to shut up. If your instinct feels that that's the way to go about it, then I applaud that, because you're probably right, because no one knows more about your space than you do. And I just think that that's how we should apply everyone's decisions, or the critiques of everyone's decisions as it relates to omnichannel approach in business.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to say that I know what I'm doing, but I'm just another fool out there trying to figure it all out myself. So, but the nice thing is that you have the option. And I feel like, based on what I see, is you build a business that is built around your specialties and what you're good at. So a lot of people who are data driven, Amazon's an amazing platform for that, where you don't have to worry about the marketing and the brand building. You can focus on the product, if you're product focused, R&D focused, and then focus on the data of understanding what the volume on the platform is and being able to capture that and be competitive, maybe from a pricing standpoint or a product standpoint. So there is no right or wrong, but like you said, don't throw rocks in a glass house. Is that what they say?
Exactly. I mean, it's hard to do what we're doing. And, I just wrote about this yesterday. I want more people's stories to get out about what they're building and how they've built it, because I think that the more that we can learn from each individual story, the more that we can use to build our own.
What should our listeners do? Where should they follow you? How should they learn more about you or contact you?
Listen, 2PML, P as in Paul, M as in Mike, L as in Larry.com is my home base. You can follow me on Twitter at Web, W-E-B. I like to help entrepreneurs in any way, shape, or form. So if you have any questions about our industry or consumer psychology, sociology, and anything in that respect, like I really appreciate answering those questions. And mainly, I just like building in this space. And so you're going to find me around, and hopefully you're impressed with what you see.
Yeah, I would echo that. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. Very engaging, very insightful, very well connected as well. He's a person that you want to follow and understand, and join the newsletter 2 p.m. and get those insights. Man, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you got a lot of things to do. So thank you for that. Thanks for being on the show. As always, guys, this has been another e-commerce Conversations. Cheers and keep on growing.